everybody, it's Oksana, and today I want to show you how to make this very basic double-sided pendant. It uses a gemstone bead. So if you go to Michael's or if you search online and you just write gemstone bead or the name of a specific gemstone that you're looking for, and this is a teardrop shaped flat bead, and it uses some thicker wire here for this frame and then some thinner weaving wire, so 18 gauge and 26 gauge, and I'll go over that and show you in more detail in the video itself. And this is a 1-inch bead. So I wanted to make something very basic that was easy for somebody that's trying wire wrapping for the very first time. And it's hard sometimes to get started with weaving thinner wire around thicker wire. So in this case, this isn't actually weaving per se. You'll see what I do there, but I basically kind of almost make like a figure 8 around 2 wires with the thinner wire. And I think that may be a little easier for some people. But anyway, so this is a double-sided pendant that is pretty quick as well to make, so that you can, kind of keep trying at it if it's your very first try, and it, won't take very long to, make it a few times. So that's it. Hopefully this video will help you get started with wire wrapping. And if you want to see how I make this pendant, then just keep watching. So I'm starting out with some 18 gauge wire. It is round, dead soft copper. Looks like this. I got it from Rio Grande and I can't barely see that. And I just have a nice long piece, definitely longer than I need. But it is better to just do longer and then have some extra than to run out. So I have about 17 inches here. And this is my bead. It is 1 inch. Yeah, right, almost exactly 1 inch tall. It is sunstone. Sometimes they call it moonstone when it's like a really light colored sunstone. And the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna just take your wire and almost like bend it in half a little bit to try and get the shape of your stone. So you can kind of use your finger. So your stone may be a teardrop like mine, or it could be oval or a circle. And basically, you just kind of want to make a shape around it that is roughly the same as your stone. It can be needs to be just the tiniest bit larger. So like this. See how it's roughly my stone, but there's just the tiniest bit of room there around it. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just take my pliers, I'm gonna grab right there, and I'm gonna bend that wire. And then same thing here, grab, bend, so now we have that shape that we made, but instead of crisscrossing, the wires are both bending up, and you can kind of check to see if everything stayed the same. Now this next part is completely optional because it requires a little bit extra material. If you wanted to hammer the wire to give it some texture, this is something called a metal block. This is what you would hammer on, and I got this from Michael's. And this is something called a chasing hammer. And mine's a little bit old and worn out, but I got this on eBay, and this is the part that I'm going to be using to hammer the wire, and because it's rounded, it's just going to make little dents and give it some texture just to the frame, not these wires coming out the top, but just the ones, going around the stone. So again, you totally do not need to do this, just if you want to. so now we've added some texture, and you can kind of check your stone, make sure your frame didn't get discombobulated there. So now we're going to take some thinner wire, and this is some 26 gauge wire, which is much, much thinner. We're going to do just a really long piece of it. So my piece is almost 44 inches. And what you want to do is you just want to fold it in half. So then here's the half. You want to take that and you want to put it over the bottom of this frame. And what you can do is you can kind of open it up a little bit so it's easier to do this next step. But what you're going to do is you're just going to hold one end of your wire and you are going to wrap this wire kind of around down here, around this frame. See how it's kind of going around? So you're just going to do that. It's a little hard to do because the wire is so long. Just a few times. And then after you do that, that was what, like 4 times? After you do that a few times, here's what it's going to look like at the top there. So what you want to do is you just want to kind of tighten this up. Because see how in the beginning it's just kind of going in the other direction. Then you want to kind of grab these wires with your pliers and just so they're together here because one was kind of going in that direction. So here's what it looks like, and here are our 2 wires, or it's 1 wire but it's attached at the half, so both of the ends are here. And what you want to do is you want to put both of them through your bead, and this is a nice thin wire, so it shouldn't be a problem for most beads to get 2 wires through. And so now just want to make sure it's centered, that your bead is, you know, positioned nicely in the frame. That was actually the back of my frame. Here's the front that's more hammered. So what you want to do now is you want to actually split up your wires just for a second here so that your bead stays centered, and you want to take 1 wire and make almost like just a little loop around one of these thicker wires, and then you want to take the other thin wire and make a loop around there. So now this bead is attached. I think it just got slightly moved there. There we go. So now you're going to take both of these wires together and just kind of line them up so they're not all crisscrossy. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the 2 of them, you're going to bring them over this top wire and then under it, like this. So you're kind of bringing it in between. See how it's going down there? And then you're bringing it up and then in between again, and just make sure your wires, I think did mine cross over? No, I think they're good. Make sure they're not getting crossed over. And again, so basically just kind of down through the middle. Oh, I think mine may have crossed over a tiny bit. Just gonna fix that real quick. And so you're just gonna keep going. You're basically almost doing like a figure 8, if that helps you imagine things, like a figure 8 with wire around those 2. And maybe it's easier just to kind of turn your piece instead of just manually moving the thinner wire. Sometimes that makes things easier as well, just turning your piece around as you kind of lay the wire where it's supposed to go. So here is what it's going to start to look like, and it's going to be pretty spread out. So what you can do is you can use your pliers, kind of flatten it a little bit, and to tighten it up, smush it up like this. So we're just going to keep going here. It's easier for me to turn my piece around. So I'm just going to do that. Until it is tall enough to be bent into a bail. And if this is turning out too difficult for you, you can theoretically just take this wire and just wrap it around and around if you wanted to. Or if you can at least just do that on the very bottom, maybe just wrap it around and around just on the very bottom so these wires don't, you know, come apart and separate. Then, you know, you don't have to do this all the way up if this is too difficult for you. Because I want this to be a very beginner-friendly pendant. So this isn't even like real weaving. I thought that this might be a little bit easier and maybe a little bit more straightforward doing it this way. So I'm almost done. I'm getting to the length here that's gonna be probably tall enough to be a bail. All right, so this is definitely tall enough now. And just smush it down. You can do that with your fingers or with some pliers. And now we're just going to take these wires and wrap them just around one wire only instead of both. Because then when we cut them, that makes it more secure and less likely to unravel. So in this little end that's sticking up, we're just gonna take our pliers, we're gonna just kind of curl it, like pretend that, you know, you're moving the wire in the direction that it's going here around the thicker wire, and that kind of lays it down and pushes those little ends down so they don't stick up anymore. So now we're just gonna hold this with our pliers, and we're just bending this. You can kind of stick your finger in there, give it a nice curve. So that is going to be your bail for your chain or your necklace to go through. So now what we're going to do is we're going to prevent this bead from sliding around. We have these two wires coming from our bail going down. And what we're going to do is we are going to cut them and give ourselves maybe like 3/4 of an inch or so. We're going to end up cutting them some more, but for the time being, this will make it easier. And we're just going to take them kind of roughly where the bead ends, and we're going to bend it on both sides, both wires, I mean, that. And now we're gonna move them back a little bit so that we can push them forward and get each one of them on either side of this little wrap. See that? See how I have them coming in? So now push them all the way in, like that. And now you can use your fingers or your pliers to bend them to the back. Like that. Now just make sure that your bead is nice and centered. And it's not like too much to one side or anything. So what we're gonna do is we are going to trim these. We're gonna trim them quite short. See that? And now we're gonna take our pliers and we're gonna smush that down, closed, so that that little end that was open gets closed and the wires don't stick up anymore. And you just wanna do that and kind of press tight so that these wires are pretty tightly pressed around here, and then they won't move around very much. So this one is pretty tight, it's not moving around, and this other one, there we go. I think I just needed to press a little harder. So now this will prevent that little wrap from sliding side to side and from your bead from moving side to side. And if you wanted to make it pretty here on the back, you can just take your pliers and you can bend these wires into just a nice shape like this. And this could maybe even be considered a double-sided pendant, because this could be, you know, can be worn like this as well. And the last step you're gonna do is you're just gonna take your pliers and you are just gonna gently press just right here at the very base of your bail. If you have a gap there, so then your bail will kind of close up and there's not gonna be a hole right here. So it's laying flat against the stone here on this side and the back. So this is one side of the pendant. And here's the other side. So that is it. That is how you make this basic double-sided pendant. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.